Hey guys, welcome to Roll With Us. As you can probably tell in my voice, I'm not feeling 100% right now. That's why I'm staying off camera. I'm still a little sick, but I really wanted to get a video out since it's been a while since I've done any video relating to gaming. I've only showcased our other business of selling personalized Christmas ornaments and our ceramic Christmas tree business. And I have a really cool concept that I've converted from Pathfinder 2nd Edition that I wanted to share with everybody today. So what I've done is taken a complex hazard from Pathfinder 2nd Edition, and the specific one is the spinning blade pillar. The format for this video is going to be, I'm going to talk about what a complex hazard is, then how do you deal with a complex hazard. I needed to create a separate action type that does not currently exist in DC20 in order to make this work, and that is disable device. And then we'll go over the Pathfinder version of this trap as well as the DC20 version. No punches pulled here. You can see on the left-hand side of the screen most of the sheet for the spinning blade pillar if you just want to screen capture it, but hopefully you'll stick around and gain the full insight into not only what it is, how it works, but also why I think it would be really fun to run in a game. Before I get into that, I do want to do a couple shout outs. First one, Bardic Aggravation. In case you are not aware, Brandon from Bardic Aggravation, who has been on this channel in our live plays, he won one of Coach's giveaways, and Dungeon Coach gave Bardic Aggravation a copy of DC20 to give away on their channel as an extra reward. So what I wanted to do to help Brandon, since he's helped us, is shout out to Bardic Aggravation and their giveaway. The information on how to participate in that giveaway is in their video that they released Tuesday. I'll have a link to that video in the description of this video. So make sure you check that out after you're done with this video. Also, a shout out to TnTori, who had a really good video on how the action economy of DC20 is like building a sandwich with choosing the different toppings that you want. I'm going to use that analogy later in this video, and I just wanted to make sure that I gave her a proper shout out in the beginning. So, okay, so complex hazards. Pathfinder 2nd Edition has complex hazards, and as you can see on the right-hand side of the screen, they function similarly to monsters and encounters as they roll initiative and they have actions of their own, though they're usually automated in a routine. Now, there's a couple things that we needed to do to make this work in DC20. The first thing is, well, monsters don't roll initiative in DC20, so we just needed an initiative DC. However, once triggered, this complex hazard is going to result in the players rolling initiative. And the other thing that's different is the way that I have this interact. Now, in Pathfinder 2nd Edition, a complex hazard is going to have its point in the initiative, and it's going to do its routine. However many actions it has, it's going to do whatever's dictated in its stat block. Now, I thought a more dynamic way to handle a complex hazard is the way that DC20 handles legendary action points. So I've decided that a complex hazard, in this case, is not going to have action points. It's going to only have legendary action points. And it's something I'm kind of toying with right now, but I'm suggesting a number of legendary action points equal to the number of PCs. I'm going to skip over to the left-hand side of the screen for a second here, and you'll see I'm going to highlight it right now. Legendary action points equal to the number of PCs. I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit, but it's really kind of important when talking about the routine. So again, in Pathfinder, the hazard is going to roll initiative. The players are going to roll initiative. Somewhere in there, the hazard's going to get its turn in the initiative, and it's just going to do its set, like, this is what I do with my however many actions I have. Now, I've proposed legendary action points where at the end of each player's turn, it's going to do one step in its routine. And then another player is going to go, and then it's going to take another step in its routine, so that throughout the entire combat round, it's constantly dynamically changing the encounter. And you could see how, if you throw a complex hazard with some monsters, you have a really dynamic situation. So that's what my goal was with creating this. Now, how do you disable one? Well, I'm glad you asked. In Pathfinder 2nd Edition, you have a 2-action activity called Disable Device. Can sometimes require Thieves' Tools. It's an action that allows you to disarm a trap or another complex device. Often, a device requires numerous successes before becoming disabled, depending on its complexity and its construction. As we'll scroll down here, you'll see critical success. You disable the device, or you achieve 2 successes towards disabling a complex device. On a success, you disable the device or achieve 1 success towards disabling the device. And on a critical failure, you trigger the device. Now, Pathfinder 2nd Edition does have a by 10 system. However, in the sense that if you beat a DC or an AC by 10 or more, you get a critical success. That is quite different than the way that DC20 handles critical successes and its by 5 system. To me, the by 5 system is more dynamic and preferable in my opinion. However, we need to take that into account when we have disable device work in DC20. So, my proposal is it's still a 2-action action, 2-action point cost action, and I'll get into why that is the case in a moment. If you meet the DC, you get a success. If you beat the DC by 5, you get 2 successes, and so on for every 5 that you beat it by. So on 1 attempt, you could essentially gain 3 successes, and that's usually what's needed to disable a device. You'll see this one is actually only 2, but a lot of them that I've come across while playing Pathfinder is 3. If you beat the DC by 10, you would disable it right away. Now, I would also grant an additional success point on a critical success. So essentially, just like a skill challenge in that regard. Now, why 2 actions? This is something that I wrestled with for a while to try to figure out what would be the best amount of actions. You know, in Pathfinder, you have 3 actions on your turn. So this is taking 2/3 of your turn. You can only ever disable device 1 time on a turn unless you're in a special situation where you have like special haste and you can do it twice in a turn, which I've only ever encountered once in the entire time that I've played Pathfinder 2nd Edition, because regular haste spell will not allow you to do this. Now, DC20 does have stacking disadvantage, which means that if you were to make multiple attempts, you would incur stacking disadvantage. You could spend action points to overcome that stacking disadvantage. However, oftentimes when you're disabling a device, there's multiple skill checks that you could use to disable it, especially some complex hazards like haunts. You might use trickery. You might use religion. There's other skills, and you could essentially make, if there were 4 relevant checks, 4 checks, no disadvantage. It would not be good for the game. So I'm suggesting to keep the 2 actions. You could still make 2 attempts on a turn. You would have stacking disadvantage on the second attempt unless it was using a second relevant skill, which I think is also perfectly balanced. And yeah, I think that's where it needs to be, is a 2 action point action disabled device. This is where I had the whole thing with TnTori's video and the building a sandwich. So in Pathfinder, here's the other thing with like a 2 action activity versus a 2 action point action. You don't see very many of those in DC20. Usually it's only spells. And while you could like spend an action point to make an attack and spend an action point to add power attack and spend an action point to add power attack and spend an action point to add advantage, and now you've made this like 4 action point 1 action attack, that's like building your sandwich. You should definitely check out that video. I'll link that in the comments as well, or in the description. Anyway, where I'm going with this. Okay, so it's different than in Pathfinder. In Pathfinder, if, say, you had sudden charge, which is good action economy, you get to move, and make an attack. So you get 3 actions worth of action economy out of 2 actions. That's good action economy. But you have to spend 2 actions on sudden charge. It's not like you kind of build your own charge. Like, that's it. Like, you spend 2 actions, you get the 3 actions worth of economy. Or even like power attack is, you're not like, I spend an action on an attack and I spend an action to add power attack. Nope, it's a 2 action activity that is power attack. So very different in how the 2 games, even though they have like an action, like 3 action economy and a 4 action point economy, they handle it very differently. Okay, a little off track there, but it's going to all be worth it when we take a look at the spinning blade pillar. So when we look at it here in Pathfinder 2nd Edition, you can see that it's a complex mechanical trap. Those are the tags. I kept the tags on the DC20 version. I don't know if it's completely relevant, but it does describe what it is. You'll see up here that in Pathfinder, it is a hazard 4. That means that it is a appropriate for level 4 characters. In fact, it would probably be easy for 4 level 4 characters. It would be a decent challenge for 4 level 2 characters, and it would be pretty hard for 4 level 1 characters, but they could possibly overcome it. But for DC20, I felt like we needed to lower this hazard level. So you see that I have made, looking at the left-hand side of the screen, I have made the spinning blade pillar for DC20 a complex hazard 2. That is going to come into play a little bit, but essentially I've based it off of like a 2nd level character as far as like some of its stats. Another thing, as far as getting inside my head and how I convert things, I look at the general levels that there are in each game for monsters and hazards and things, and I try to line them up 1-to-1 to see where they would fall. So in Pathfinder, you have creature -2 is the weakest creature, and then -1, then 0, then 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's 7 steps from the bottom, being a hazard 4. Now, for DC20, then I count up on my fingers, like so. I currently have 7 fingers out, and then as I count them DC20-wise, we have Novice, that's 1. We have 0, 2. We have level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So to get to a hazard 4 in Pathfinder, it would be a 5th level creature hazard in equivalency. So a 4th level hazard in Pathfinder is a 5th level hazard in DC20. As far as my comparison goes, I don't want to create a 5th level hazard because it's not going to be useful to anybody currently. So I dropped it to hazard 2 so that people could play with it now. And it would still be pretty relevant because you can mix this in with some monsters even at like levels 3 and 4 once 0.9 beta comes out. Okay. So I've gone into a lot of depth here. Hopefully I haven't lost anybody yet. But to continue on, you see that I've pretty much copied the format, and then I just convert. That's pretty much how I do all of my conversions. So when we look at the stealth, in Pathfinder, it would roll its stealth with plus 11. DC20, I felt like just having a stealth DC that, if they were actively looking for this trap, that's what they would need in order to beat it. And that is based on a 2nd level creature, like what its stealth DC would probably be. And when you set a DC like a passive in DC20, the formula is 8 plus the relevant skill, in this case stealth. So a 2nd level character with a plus 3 to agility and trained in stealth would have a plus 5 bonus. So 5 plus 8 is 13. And then I cross-reference that with, a level 2 character. Their saving throw DC is 14. And Dungeon Coach has said that a DC that's equal to the player's saving throw DC is a normal challenge. If it's one less, it's easy. If it's one higher, it's hard. And you can, go higher or lower depending on how easy or hard you want the check to be. But the baseline for any DC in DC20 is the character save DC. That is a really important thing that I've picked up from Dungeon Coach. So 13 seems fine. It's not extremely easy. They have a pretty good chance of beating that, but I don't know. It could have been 14. 13 just seemed fine, so I left it. And then usually an initiative DC, that would also be the encounter DC of 13 then too, kind of. And then the initiative DC being 5 higher is the recommend that Dungeon Coach has thrown out in the past. So initiative DC 18 then. The description is pretty much verbatim what it said, with the exception that I changed 30 feet to 5 spaces. Reason being that anything in Dungeons and Dragons that's 30 feet usually becomes 5 spaces in DC20. So that just seemed clean. It's the same thing that things in D&D that would be 60 feet in DC20 becomes 10. So dark vision in D&D is usually 60 feet, and in DC20 it's 10 spaces. So you do lose 10 feet off of, or 2 spaces off of the dark vision that you would have in D&D. However, it's simple because you're working in spaces, so it's like 10s, 5s, 10s. He keeps the math very clean rather than saying 6 spaces, 12 spaces. Okay, so I don't know. There's a lot of information in this video. I really hope that it's not overwhelming, but I feel like people will hopefully get a lot out of all of the just information I'm throwing out. All right, so again, disabling is really important. So when we look at disable, you'll see there thievery for Pathfinder, trickery in DC20. So in Pathfinder, it is thievery DC21 twice on the pillar, or thievery DC19 expert once on the control panel deactivates the whole trap. I'm gonna hold up there. Let me highlight that just so that you guys can see what I'm talking about. So it's that, and then on the other hand, it is this. So for DC20 trickery, DC13 again, kind of using the encounter DC. Also going by coach's formula of one less than the PC's thing is easy. I figured 13 is still, it's not a guarantee, but it also has a good chance of getting both successes in one shot, which would feel good. But trickery DC 13 twice on the pillar, getting 2 successes, or 1 trickery DC 15 check on the panel to disable the whole trap. Now, if you look at the Pathfinder version, thievery DC 19 expert, that means you cannot even attempt in Pathfinder, you cannot even attempt to disable the control panel unless you're an expert in thievery. You cannot be an expert in thievery this early in DC 20 unless you have some feature that gives you expertise in that, in thievery and trickery. So rather than have that requirement, which is not currently a thing in DC 20 at all, I just increased the DC. So while the DC is lower in Pathfinder to do the panel, it's only DC 19. It's easier, and you only have to do it once. To make up for the fact that you had to be an expert in Pathfinder, I made this a higher DC to do the control panel. I think it's fine. I think that's a good compromise. I'm not 100% that DC 15 is correct. That is technically 13 an easy check, 15 a hard check. Should the 15 be higher because you only need 1 success? Maybe it should be 18. Maybe it should be 5 higher. Maybe it should have been by 5. I will have to test it out and see. But currently, I'm just running with the 15. The other thing is that the panel's hidden. So, you know, a neat thing with these complex hazards is that they're going to trigger it. It's going to start activating. They're going to be like, holy crap, what do I do now? Like, what's going on even? Do I attack it? What do I do? They may need to analyze creature to, like, try to figure out, like, how do I deal with this? What is this even? You know, what can I find out about it? And maybe even, like, seek or search to try to find, like, other hidden things like the panel. But then once they find it, so they need to spend like an action just to like try to find it, and then they'll need to, you know, actually move up to it and then try to disable it. So I think 15 is fine because it is not easy. You know, it's not like it's, oh, I just make the 1 check and I'm done. You know, there's a little bit extra work that needs to go into it. The pillar is going to be there because it's going to be attacking them. So yeah. Anyway, let's continue on. So another neat thing with complex hazards and why you might want to, you know, recall knowledge. And I'll say that, like, one of my goals when I run DC20 is I want to encourage the players to recall, to analyze creature, to utilize analyze creature. And Dungeon Coach has said he can count on one hand the number of times people have used analyze creature in his games. And I think it's an amazing thing. In fact, one of the times that I did get to play, I actually built a champion, which is the new title for fighter, and I made him intelligence-based, and my goal was to analyze creature as often as I could. So, anyway, break the control panel prevents anyone from disabling the trap using the control panel and prevents the trap from deactivating automatically. So, Like, you could think, hey, I'll just break the panel. Yeah, okay. You might not want to do that. So, this is where that analyzed creature is going to tell you, hey, you probably don't want to break the panel. It also would tell you, the trickery to disable it and those kinds of things. Whatever relevant information you want to share or, they ask for. As we come on down, you see that it has some stats. Now in Pathfinder, we have an AC of 21, a Fortitude save of plus 10, and a Reflex save plus 12. I had to make those stats work in DC20, so you know what? I'll just highlight that. So as you can see on the screen currently, in DC20 we have PD instead of AC. I went with 10. Okay, so this was a hard one to come up with because, Pathfinder has 21. How do I come up with what that looks like in DC20? Well, the base is 10. No, I'm sorry. The base is 8. And then Combat Mastery. So this is a Hazard 2. So Combat Mastery would be 1. So that would be 9. It needs a higher PD than 9. 10 seemed okay. And there's another very good reason why 10 seemed good, which is the Pillar's DR, the damage resistance. But I'll get to that in a second. MD0, but when we get to immunities, you'll see why. And I'll explain haunts very briefly once we get to the immunities. Might save and agility save. That's going to be the representation of your fortitude save, which is like a constitution save in Pathfinder, and a reflex save. This would be if the pillar needed to make a saving throw against some physical thing. Now, I debated just putting physical save. I honestly wasn't sure if I was going to have might be stronger, agility be stronger. Which saving throw did I want to have a 4? I knew one of them would be a 4, so the physical save would be 4. But I just decided if I was going to do other complex hazards, they're going to have might and agility saves. They might be different. There might be a case where you need both numbers. So there they are. So that was my reasoning on keeping might and agility versus just doing physical save. As we continue down, we have the Pillar's DR, the Pillar's HP, the Panel DR, the Panel HP, and immunities. And when we look at the Pathfinder version, that is all here. So in Pathfinder, we have a Pillar hardness of 12. That means the first 12 damage of every attack is nullified. You don't even deal any damage to it. You have to deal more than 12 damage in one hit, unless you have something like Flurry of Blows that you add the 2 attacks together. But normally, you would have to do at least 12 damage to do any damage to this pillar. Now, obviously, that's way too high for DC20. So when I looked at it and I looked at the HP, 48, I was like, okay, let's quarter it. So if we quarter the 12 in the hardness, we get 3, a DR of 3. That seems pretty comparable for DC20. And then Pillar HP, we quarter it. It has 12 hit points. And 12 hit points doesn't seem like a lot, maybe. But in DC20, it's pretty decent. And then when the DR of 3, you have to deal at least 3 damage to it with a single hit to deal even a single point of damage to the pillar. And this isn't PDR, it's DR, damage reduction, not physical damage reduction, even though it is technically, but it's not PDR. That's a key distinction because this DR is not going to be bypassed by heavy or brutal hits. You are going to have to deal 3 damage just to break through its DR and then start chipping away at that 12. We look at the panel. The panel has a hardness of 5 in Pathfinder and 20 hit points. Again, we quarter it. Okay. So quarter of 5 is 1.25. Yes. And then round up because DC20, right? So we get a DR of 2, and the 20 hit points becomes 5. Panel has less DR. It's going to be easier to actually overcome. Only has 5 hit points. You could smash through the panel a lot easier than the pillar. But again, when you kind of look at the numbers comparatively between Pathfinder 2nd Edition and DC20, I think I've nailed it. I think this is going to have the feel of the Pathfinder complex hazard, but it's like DC25. It's, it's right there. Anyway, immunities. So in Pathfinder, we have immunity to critical hits, object immunities. Honestly, I'm going to be honest, I have no clue what object immunities is. And then precision damage, which is like sneak attack type stuff. Honestly, I don't care. I don't care about that in DC20. Like critical hits, sure, you should deal more damage. And precision, yeah, I mean, there is no real precision, but like, when it like precision damage is like its own special thing in Pathfinder. But yeah, I mean, if you could somehow fulfill like a sneak attack kind of thing or something like that, like where you're dealing extra damage, I don't like, because it's not going to have conditions and things. So, and maybe I need to look at the immunities a little bit more, but while I'm at it, if anybody does know what object immunities is, please let me know in the comment section, because I'm not sure. 2 years playing Pathfinder 2nd Edition, running Pathfinder 2nd Edition, and I have no clue. All right. So, in DC20, it has immunity from damage from attacks that target its MD. So even though it has a 0 for its MD because it's a machine, it is immune because it's a machine. Psychic, like none of Radiant, Umbral, it's not going to impact this thing, because I guess a case could be made for Sonic, maybe because it's like sound waves. However, I just simply, you cannot deal it with damage to it with things that target MD. Now, there's other complex hazards called haunts in Pathfinder 2nd Edition. If I were going to run a haunt, I would run it backwards to this. It would be immune to attacks against PD, against like physical damage, but you could damage it with like Radiant, Umbral, Psychic, Sonic, True. Those would be the damage types that you could actually target it with to deal damage to it. But the goal really with these complex hazards usually is not to destroy them through combat. Usually you want to disable them somehow. Analyze them, find out what they do, how to disable them, and then disable them. That's usually the best way in Pathfinder to handle them. And I think that shines through here too. Like with a ghost, like you're not probably going to try to beat it down with a sword. You're probably going to need like religion, occult, some kind of skill check, diplomacy maybe if it's a ghost. Although in DC20 it would be influence. So, I digress. Again, there's so much information in this video, but I hope it's helping. So how does this thing trigger? It triggers on this rising pillar, a reaction. I'll highlight that, and then I'll highlight it over here in the Pathfinder version. So in Pathfinder, as a reaction, it makes an attack. Trigger, a creature steps on one of the trapped floor tiles. The effect, the trap pops up in a grid intersection and makes a spinning blade attack against one adjacent creature, if any, and then it rolls initiative, and then everybody else would. That's Pathfinder. Again, we're not rolling initiative for the trap in DC20. The players are rolling. But as you see here, same thing. It's a reaction. A creature steps on the trap floor tile. It pops up. It makes an attack against one adjacent creature, if any. Then the PCs roll initiative. So, this is the DC20 way of handling that. And then you see the routine. So, looking at the routine here, I'll highlight that as well. No, not at speed. Just the routine. So, in Pathfinder, it has 3 actions. The trap uses its first action. So, when it rolls initiative, when it gets to its turn in the initiative, it has 3 actions. Again, not every complex hazard in Pathfinder 2nd Edition has 3 actions. This one happens to have 3 actions. So it uses its first action to make a spinning blade strike against each adjacent creature. Its second action to move in a straight line in a random direction. Roll a d4 to determine the direction. And its third action to make another strike against each adjacent creature. And this trap doesn't take a multiple attack penalty. Just like in DC20, there is a multiple check penalty. However, in Pathfinder, it's just a multiple attack penalty, and it largely applies to any time you're making an attack roll, although it also does trigger on some athletics-based things like shove, grapple, escape a grapple, and that kind of thing will also build up this multiple attack penalty. It's another thing, just to be honest, that I think DC20 does better than Pathfinder 2nd Edition, is that the multiple check penalty is per check instead of having this one ominous thing called the multiple attack penalty that like other things cause to grow. And so if like you're grappled and you spend an action to attempt to break the grapple and you fail, like you're kind of like screwed then on attacking, because your attack is at multiple attack penalty. You're screwed on making another attempt to break the grapple because that's at multiple attack penalty. So, in my opinion, I feel like Pathfinder 2nd Edition penalizes the players way too much, and it taxes the players way too much. DC20 has a much fairer system where, if you want to attack multiple times in a turn, yes, you will get stacking disadvantage. However, you can spend an action point to overcome that disadvantage if you're willing to trade your action economy for more accurate attacks. And also, you can make an attack with a weapon in a turn, and then you can cast a spell in the same turn that uses like an attack check kind of thing where you are making a spell check versus somebody's PD or MD. And neither one of those suffer multiple check penalty. I know I'm going off script here a little bit, but I just cannot sing the praises of DC20 enough, and it is the perfect blend of D&D and Pathfinder 2nd Edition, improving on both systems. So, over to DC20. The routine, it has legendary action points equal to the number of PCs. So if you have 3 players, it has 3 legendary action points. If you have 4 players, it has 4 legendary action points, so on and so forth. The trap uses its first legendary action to make a spinning blade strike against each adjacent creature. Its second action to move in a straight line in a random direction, roll a d4 to determine the direction. And its third action to make a spinning blade strike against each adjacent creature. The trap continues this routine until it deactivates. So I don't know if it's completely clear here, but as I explained in the beginning, let's say the players win, right? One player goes first. He uses Analyze Creature. He discovers a little bit of information about this pillar. He does something else. This trap will, at the end of that player's turn, spend a legendary action point, make a whirling blade attack. Then another player will go. At the end of that player's turn, you're going to roll a d4, and the trap's going to move 2 spaces in that random direction. And then another player is going to go. and then it's going to make a whirling blade attack against each adjacent creature at the end of the third player's turn. And then the fourth player is going to go. And then the trap is going to move again in a random direction determined by a d4. And it's just going to keep doing that. So at the end of every player's turn throughout the entire initiative, it's just going to keep move, attack, move, attack, move, attack. And it's going to be dynamically moving all over the battlefield while they're trying to figure out what's going on. And again, if you throw this in with a bunch of monsters, a couple monsters, I think you have a really cool encounter on your hands because, this thing is random and who knows what it's going to do. And the first time a player interacts with this thing, I think it's going to be gold. It's going to be gold. All right. So we just had a couple more things to figure out here, right? And then we can wrap up the video. But, of course, when you convert from DC Pathfinder 2nd Edition to DC20 or D&D in this case, speed is in feet in those games, so 10 feet. I just converted it to 2 spaces. It maintains the feel of what it would do in Pathfinder. It's going to move 2 spaces, 10 feet, same difference. In its action, right? Melee, 1 action point, spinning blade. Now in Pathfinder 2nd Edition, it's plus 12 to hit. In DC20, of course, it's going to be much lower, and even lower because this is a 2nd level hazard versus a 4th level hazard in Pathfinder. And yes, Pathfinder has very big numbers, as you could tell, with plus 12 to hit on a 4th level threat. Some more context. My 7th level fighter in Pathfinder has plus 18 to hit. It's kind of insane. Anyway, going with a 2nd level creature, plus 4 is your normal attack modifier, so I just went with that. And then the damage, of course, Pathfinder, huge numbers again, 2d10 plus 5 slashing. We're not doing that in DC20, so 2 slashing. It needs to be more threatening than your typical monster, probably. I debated maybe 3, but the thing is, it's still going to do by 5, so, and then critical, right? So you could still deal a ton of damage. And 2 base slashing is on par with your 2-handed weapons. So I think this is a balanced action cost to attack modifier and damage. Perfect. And then reset. So the trap deactivates and resets after 1 minute in Pathfinder 2nd Edition. And when we look at the DC20 version, I have the trap deactivates and resets after 2 minutes. The reason is Pathfinder 2nd Edition, 1 minute is 10 rounds because you have 6-second turns. 6-second rounds, so that 10 rounds is a minute. And in DC20, you have 12-second rounds, so 5 rounds is a minute. But I wanted to get that full 10-round feel out of this thing before it just resets right away. I figure, if it resets after 5 rounds, I don't know. It would lose some of its specialness, I guess. So it runs for 2 minutes, 10 rounds, same as it does in Pathfinder. And I guess that's all I have on this this complex hazard that I created. I would like to try to get this into people's hands, a copy of it. I currently have it up on my Patreon. I'm trying to think maybe shift around our Patreon benefits so that I can maybe put these write-ups that I do at the lowest tier if anybody would be interested in supporting at the lowest tier. I will update later with, if we make any changes like that. Currently, These are at the $10 tier, all of the write-ups as well as access to any one-shots and other things and other homebrews that we've made. But again, I'm thinking about that, just to add some more value to the lower tiers that we might add this. But if you're interested, definitely check out our Patreon in the description. I don't know why I can't think of that word tonight. The description section. And again, don't forget to check out Bardic Aggravation. Their video from Tuesday, again linked. They have another second part of that coming out next week. Again, congrats to Brandon at Bardic Aggravation for winning the contest, and then also for getting that giveaway. Good job, Brandon. Very excited for you guys. Well, as you have seen, this is our busy holiday season. We are rapidly approaching Christmas, so I will be very busy for the next nearly 2 weeks. So at least the next 12 days. I doubt you're going to see another video from Roll With Us prior, unless it's focused on our small business Top Notch Ornaments or Top Notch Ceramic Trees. Also links in the description. But yeah, I hope everybody enjoyed this video. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thanks for hanging with me, and keep rolling with us.